our COW meeting for March 5th, 2025 to order. Thanks everybody for coming and being here. This is great. We've got all the board members are here. So looking at our agenda for tonight, our general business, is there any recommended changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Do we have approval of the agenda?
Madam?
No. We don't have to make a motion. We don't have to make a motion. We just
go on.
Sounds good? Everybody sounds good? Okay. Now our information and discussion. Last month, this was the highlight of the meeting. I really love this. So we're going to go into the accreditation presentation 6, 7, and 8. And Justin, do you have any drum roll beforehand?
We could all do the drum roll.
Okay.
Just a small change. It's going to be 6, 8.
6,
We'll
8.
pick up 7 on the next one.
Okay, sounds well.
Mr. Munez went home sick today. So.
Okay, sounds well. He sounded under the weather on Monday.
Yeah, so
when I saw him, so alrighty.
So.
Oh.
Wording the
Come this
owl.
Okay. Okay, this is Rhonda Morrison.
Good evening, I'm Rhonda Morrison, so nice to see you all. I'm the music teacher at Albin and Burns Elementaries, and this is my 28th year in the classroom. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit tonight about our mentoring program for novice and new to district teachers. Novice teachers, our brand new teachers, can receive 2 years of support, and new to district teachers can receive 1 year of support. This support comes from a veteran teacher, hopefully someone in similar content. We meet regularly, and as a mentor, I have assisted with navigating PowerSchool, grading processes, curriculum resources, behavior management strategies, teacher expectations. I've been a sounding board for questions, and I have conducted peer observations and modeled lessons. I'm also a person who answers numerous emails from people who may have questions. So this mentoring structure was not in place in 2012 when I joined the district, and I am so glad to see that our administrators saw the need to input this very important process. It's so much easier to walk through your first few years as a new teacher with a trusted mentor. So we use some of the ideas that are here. Our new teachers also complete a book study with Mr. Pierantoni over the course of the first year of teaching in our school district. And in this way, they become familiar with our superintendent, and they also get to know our philosophy here at Laramie County School District 2. Do you have any questions about our mentoring process?
Not yet.
Well, let me know. Next, I'd like to talk to you about some of our professional development opportunities that are provided to our teachers and staff members. Our guiding coalition, it's a team of 32 teachers and administrators, attended the PLC at Work Institute in Tulsa this past summer. We received firsthand training about how to properly implement the PLC process in our schools. Over the past few years, our elementary teachers have received extensive literacy information through 2 years of letters training. And this was an in-depth study in science of reading and phonics training. And this is positively impacting our reading instruction. Professional development for teachers and paraprofessionals is planned according to our specific current needs in our district. Teachers provide input through surveys, and administrators use this information to plan our PD opportunities. A recent example is right here with our mental health expert, Josh Varner. He spoke to us all last fall. He provided strategies for dealing with students who have experienced trauma, and sadly, this is a much needed training. I remember that he spoke about becoming a hero for your students, and he also talked at length about teacher mental health and teacher self-care, and I thought that was very, very important for us. It is a very relevant topic. Teachers are also encouraged to access and attend the PD opportunities provided by and around the state of Wyoming. For example, if one of our teachers learns about an upcoming workshop relating to his or her particular content area, they can submit a professional development request to the administrator and to Tracy, our curriculum director, for approval, and then they will be able to attend that workshop. I find that very helpful. By participating in peer observations using the eye observation tool, teachers can learn by observing model lessons right here in our own school district. These are conducted at the teacher's request or suggested by the principal who sees a specific need. These lab classrooms are a great way to share successful techniques. This can even happen in different buildings. You can travel to another building to watch a lab teacher do their lesson, and you can learn that in that way. So much can be learned from a resident expert, and we have many of them, and then replicated in your own classroom. Another significant resource for professional development at the district level is provided by our literacy coaches, Wanda and Amy. Upon observing or discussing with the teacher, they may identify a weakness, and then they pair that teacher with another who's experienced and successful in that area. So they plan a learning lab experience. They attend the learning lab with them, and after the observation, the coach will reflect with them and discuss ways to implement the new strategies in their classroom. At the secondary level, principals may also conduct educational rounds with multiple teachers observing one expert teacher in a lab classroom setting. And this is done with the goal of noticing great ideas that I can use in my own classroom. Teachers are great at borrowing ideas and making them their own. All of these are ways that I've been able to fill my teacher tool belt with methods, resources, and strategies that work. Our ultimate goal is always to improve our instructional methods so that our students reap the benefits. Do you have any questions for me about our professional development opportunities?
Talk to me more about the eye observation thing. How
This
does
is our computer. I'll do my attempt and then I'll take it from there. From my side, it is a place where there's an icon on my computer. I go to eye observation. This is where my principal loads information to me about how he has observed me, but there's a special place that I can go and do a peer observation. So when I have gone to see my mentee and I observed him teaching, then I would go in and provide my input, not as an administrator, but as a peer, and then he could see the input that I provided to him there. And so I think it's a pretty, very useful tool.
Good for feedback.
Mm-hmm. It gives you something on which to base your thoughts, not just great job, you know,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
really looking for things.
Billy.
When you guys went to the June, the PLC at
Yes.
over the summer, did you feel like anything that you have incorporated anything from that conference to this year?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The one thing for me as a facilitator of my, I'm the facilitator of the fine arts group, and so it gave me structure, guidance. How am I leading and facilitating my group? What should I be asking my folks to do? What, we think about the 4 different questions. Where are we at? What have we, how are we moving ourselves from step 2 to step 3? What are we going to accomplish this year that moves us down the ladder or up the ladder? What else needs to be done? It's not that I am in charge of them, but I'm encouraging us to move on up. Let's keep moving. Don't stop at this. What assessments did that assessment work? When we PLC, if I could give a personal example, we found a way for 4 different music teachers who all teach at different schools and at different levels to create a common assessment. We were able to write the assessment, fine-tune the assessment, and then give it. We are now on our 3rd quarter, and we'll meet in 2 weeks for our 3rd quarter assessment. What have we learned since 1st quarter? what are we doing? What did you do that your scores are looking so well? How can I add that? How did you teach this? We are able to PLC in a very, very profound way, in my opinion. That's such a jump from where we were last year at this time. My thoughts.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Billy was talking about, how much of the stuff at the PLC conference was like, hey, we're doing this already and we're just rock stars already at this?
It was my very first PLC conference, so a lot of it was like, whoa, this is all really cool. But many things we were doing.
Okay.
I would say we had already made big steps in putting our groups together in our PLC groups. One of the things, I'd say we were about halfway, Cody.
Okay.
One of the pieces that was helpful for me was we have a number of teachers, Lone Ranger is not the right word, what do we call it? Singletons. And,
I like that
and so I was able to attend classes or a couple of workshops that talked about how do you manage, who can you PLC with when you're the only one that's teaching that subject in your school? Well, how can you make that work? So that was effective.
Rhonda, it's just teachers in PLCs. Are parents
Correct.
ever part of PLCs? Are they ever invited?
Not in my subject area,
Okay,
but
I'm just
maybe
curious.
at other levels.
So last year when we had Kathy and we had more people within our PLC
Okay.
time, we had a solid block and our pairs were very involved in it because they're so instrumental
Yeah.
and they're carrying out so much of our RTI and our intervention
Yes.
work that they were a part of every PLC that we had based on our grade level teams.
Mhm.
This year we have not had that extra person and that extra time, and it's definitely made a huge impact. It's really hard because their contract time is 3:30 and they're out the door.
Right.
And so we're finding 5 minutes in the hall to talk about, okay, this is what I need you to do and how did that work and how do we move forward? And so it's been very difficult, but in previous years when we had that time, it was very instrumental in really moving our kids.
Yeah, I would think that would be a valuable thing
Mhm, I agree.
to include them.
Any other questions?
Just that made me think, so do we have a mentoring program set up for our paras also?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
It's because they're everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
They are. They're everywhere.
I would suggest that perhaps the special ed ones do because they meet
Okay.
corporately with their main teacher, but I'm not sure.
Any other questions?
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
We have high impact strategies, and our high impact strategies are professional learning communities or PLCs. So we're going to be talking a lot more about that. She did refer to the 4 questions, and questions 1 and 2 we've been working on for a few years now, and that's what do we want the students to know and learn. And then question 2 is how will we know if they've learned it, and that's through creating assessments, common assessments. And then this year our focus is on questions 3 and questions 4. What will we do for the students that don't learn it, and what will we do for the students that have already learned it? And the don't learn it is the intervention times, and our paras are very helpful in intervention times, but we don't really have training for them or time for PLCs with them. And then enrichment is also when our special teachers in my building help with the enrichment part for us. But 2 teachers, one from the elementary and one from the secondary, also attended the conference, and they're going to speak to y'all about PLCs.
My thing says as Amber said.
Oh,
Amber, I think you did go
I
first.
did go first last time.
I threw away my notes from our accreditation visit. One thing, when you retire, you get rid of stuff. I'm doing that.
Okay, so luckily Rhonda kind of already has talked a lot about what I'm gonna talk to you about. So we, in the last several years, our district has really prioritized PLCs, and they've provided training to ensure that our staff across the district understand the process and the benefits of this strong collaborative community. Several years ago, we brought in Solution Tree to help teachers understand the PLC process. They guided us in designing a schedule that promoted collaborative time within our buildings and district and helped us develop norms for our PLC meetings. More than that, the presenters encouraged us to see each other as teammates and working towards the same goal. We are all better together when we are given time and space to share our expertise, and we can ensure that all of our students are achieving. So instead of them just being my students in my classroom, every second grader is my student in the district. Our district is unique in that many of our teachers are singletons, and without a grade level or a content level partner, and thus collaborating within our district has become really, really important, and it's just as important as within our buildings. Last year, we were given the directive to spend 30 hours in grade level PLCs outside of our contract time. The flexibility of that schedule ensured that all team members were allowed to attend and that they had a voice and that they had the opportunity to share their struggles and their successes. We use the 30 hours to unpack the standards, determine and align our priorities, share resources, and develop and evaluate assessments. Those are those first two things. In May, though, we did get to attend the PLC at Work conference in Tulsa, and the time there only validated the importance of the work that we had already started. In every session, the presenters went over the 4 critical questions. What do we want students to know and be able to do? How do we know when they have learned it? What do we do if they don't learn it? And what do we do if they do? By the end of the conference, we knew we didn't have all the answers to these questions, but we knew that collaboratively we could figure them out. We returned with the desire to do better and develop 15-day units as grade level teams. During the 15-day challenge, teachers identify the priority learning targets, they unpack those targets, develop summative informative assessments, share strategies and materials used for teaching each learning target, identify supports and plans for Tier 2 instruction and enrichment. This process really provides grade level teams with a common formative and summative assessments that then promote that reoccurring cycle where we're constantly evaluating where our students are at and help us understand what we need to do to help them reach their goals. In elementary school, teachers are constantly gathering information through observations, conferences, classwork, exit tickets, and common assessments of students' progress through the standards. More specifically, as we have begun to develop our 15-day units, grade level teams identified daily checkpoints to ensure that the students are on track in relation to the lesson's objectives. These data points assess mastery of each essential standard or their progress towards mastery of those essential standards. This also helps us identify students who need additional instruction in Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions, or if they're ready for enrichments. Within our building PLCs, this data ensures that students are receiving timely feedback and timely interventions that are specific to the unit's learning targets and are intended to prevent large learning gaps. We use screeners like FastBridge, letters, and past assessments that also identify needs for intervention. FastBridge also suggests effective supplemental supports that allow us to progress monitor their throughout our intervention cycle to see how much they are growing. These screeners are especially helpful in identifying larger learning gaps in students at the beginning of the year. Our building PLCs use this data to determine if all students would benefit from reteaching of material or whether they can be grouped into smaller Tier 2 and Tier 3 groups for instruction. Using these common assessments or checkpoints in our district PLCs encourages productive discourse between grade level teams. This data informs our practice by promoting discussion and performance level reliability and the effectiveness of our teaching materials and the strategies. The fluidity of our plan ensures that students will benefit from our collective knowledge in the future and ensures that all of our students are learning. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, give me
That was a lot, right?
Give me an example of one of your exit tickets. What did you
So
do? You do something today or?
I did do something today. Actually, I do multiple a day. So today we had an actual exit ticket on money. We've been working on money. And so my kids come in every day, they do a math warm up, they got a problem of the day, and then when they show me their problem of the day and they've been successful, I'll hand them a sheet of paper that has 4 problems on it. Usually, when they bring it back to me, I can immediately tell them, you are a 1, you are a 2, you are a 3 or 4, because it's only 4 problems. I can look at it and know immediately. And then I can give them that opportunity. I can say, hey, I want you to go work on this, but I'm gonna call you back in a minute. And I then, later in that math lesson, after I taught the next lesson, when they were working on independent work, brought those kids that were a 1 or a 2, and we sat at the table and we talked about how do we solve these problems? Where did we go wrong? What did we were counting money, so did we count, a dime as a 5, as a nickel, or did we count a nickel as a quarter, right? And so we could sit down really quick, and then I can give them another problem on a whiteboard and see where they're at, and I can send them on their merry way when they've figured out, you know what I did? I counted a quarter as a nickel. So that's an example of that constant instruction that we're informing our instruction all day long. Any other questions?
Julianne?
So, in this district, we've been talking about PLCs for a very, very long time. So I just want your honest, and any of you guys that are working with the Canaan staff, your honest opinion, and I think I have my idea about it, but your honest opinion about where we are as a district with PLCs compared to 2 or 3 years ago, or 4 or 5 years ago, and why?
I think that I feel like we've ran the hamster wheel, right? We've talked about it. When we came back from this PLC conference, it lit a fire under us. Those of us that I'm so sad that not every person could attend, because when we came back, those of us that went were ready. We were supercharged, because working collaboratively makes our job so much easier. And I feel like the people that attended, there was enough of us on each content level team or a grade level team that were keeping that fire going, like, hey, what are you using? How are you reaching that kid? How did you get that score? Like, I feel like we finally are at the point where we're moving forward and we're seeing them not just as one word box that we checked, but seeing them as really beneficial to improving how we teach and how we reach our kids.
So you really think that this conference was really a jump start
Absolutely.
of all the stuff that we've tried for how many years?
Well, I think like Rhonda said, it gave me tools.
Yeah.
We've talked about it, and we talked about it, and we talked about it, and we had, like, this is what your structure should look like. But I think it gave you tools to have those hard conversations. When you have somebody that, isn't bringing their district assessments to the PLC, or they're not saying a whole lot, it gave you tools to how do you get them to share? How do you get them to open up? Maybe their kids didn't do so good on those assessments, and they're afraid to say that, but like, how do we get them to open up so that we realize we're all on the same team? Like, we all want to see us be successful, not just me against you. And I think that was what really that conference gave us some really great tools and strategies to make our teams better.
More about we than me.
Exactly.
From a coach.
Billy, go ahead.
Okay, I just had a quick question. Oftentimes we can identify where kids need some support and help in learning and career. Are we now starting to see some benefits in identifying kids that need they're already there, but they need to be challenged more, and it's like developing tools to help them get that?
Absolutely. Each unit's different, right? Like, first grade's killing it in addition and subtraction, so my addition and subtraction unit, we flew through it. My kids were doing project-based learning in tier enrichment, the majority of them. I mean, like, I had 3 kids that needed tier 2 intervention of my 18 kids. That's impressive, right? And theirs was just more extra practice. It wasn't a tier 3 intervention. They just needed to regroup a couple more times. It just depends on what I'm looking at. But I mean, for the most part, I feel like having a solid tier, intervention program has really, I don't have as many kids that are needing tier 2 and tier 3, and if they do, it's brief. And I can send them on, and we can move on to either the next skill, or I can send them to enrichment. Michael?
You spoke to it there again. I think I understand a little better. Tier 2 and tier 3 is like.
So like tier 2 really is that catch and release. Today, that was basically what I did, right? I pulled him in, I said, okay, we got this problem wrong, let's talk about why we got it wrong. And we worked on a couple more after that, and then I gave them a check, I gave them a coin problem, they got it right, and I sent them on their way. Now they're gonna keep practicing, right? They're gonna keep practicing over and over and over again. And I'm gonna keep checking through an observation, through their classwork. But tier 3 is more of that really intensive intervention, like a kid that maybe can't even identify his coins, let alone, or maybe he can't even skip count. He can't skip count by 5, so how is he going to count nickels, right? So that would be more of a tier 3 intervention where it's in a really small group, 1 to 2 kids, where we're really digging into what's the foundation that you're missing so that you even can get to counting coins.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you, Amber.
Yeah.
Lisa warned him about
Yeah.
turning towards the camera, so that.
I didn't want a sweeter.
Don't tell
Yeah,
sweeter.
sweeter's known for it.
the world.
Did you change it?
Do you want it back?
Yeah, it's fine, it doesn't matter. So I'm Ashley Russo, I am a teacher at Pine Bluffs High School. And as Amber said, the 30-hour placement extends to the secondary level and our subject area committees, which are subject-based. So I'm in the ELA team, there's also social studies team, science, etc. In 2023, LCSD 2 piloted ELA curricular resources to shift our practices and focus for our PLC process. So most importantly, questions 3 and 4, which is what Ms. Broski was talking about, the intervention and enrichment practices. These are foundational questions that really drive our instruction, especially in our building, science, math, and ELA PLCs. Our building PLCs in years past have been on our common planning period, once per week, but now we've been using prime time every other week, and it's really dry, it's shortened and made it more purposeful and targeted, as opposed to, let's fill the class period. It's like, no, we have 30 minutes. We need to do X, Y, and Z during this time, and so we really get through it and make sure that we're covering all of that stuff. Prime time or Bronx Flex time is in our District 7 through 12 for intervention and enrichment that we've built into our schedule. That was something that we built in the first PLC conference that we attended with the cohorts, the Casper cohorts. What was that group called?
The state cohort.
The state
Yeah.
like the state brought in Solution Tree to do that. So that started maybe 4 years ago, maybe 5. It's been a while. This is year 11 here, so it's in my brain somewhere. We have 30 minutes daily during that time for students and teachers to get makeup work delivered, completed, take college classes. So Mrs. Golding and I hosted college classes during prime time the past 2 years, but now we've shifted away from that so that it's more purposeful of the enrichment and intervention so that both her and I are available during prime time. We get small group instruction through teacher chosen groups. They play chess or other games, have class meetings, as well as many other things. Prime time is a piece of our schedule for the past 4 years. There's the time. I knew it was in there. But with the addition of RTI Scheduler, which Mr. Dishman talked about last COW meeting, we've had a drastic shift in our planning and organizing, and we rolled that out Q3 of last year. So as Mr. Dishman talked about it a bit, but I'll just share what I talked about. Both BHS and PBHS utilize the tool. We learned about the program at the Cheyenne PLC at work. And so they told us, like, they're like, it's a great tool, it's easy to use, it talks to PowerSchool, and we're like, okay. And so we bought into it. As a member of Pine Bluffs High School Building Coalition, we attended video conferences, learned the program before we rolled it out to our staff. So we wanted to be able to answer all of those questions before the other teachers had to add their students in there. We wanted to get all of the pressing questions as well as the housekeeping, which Miss Patry is a rock star at. She does it all, for Pine. Our focus when integrating the program was prevention instead of postvention. So for our students, so prevent the hole or the poor grades instead of reacting to the holes or the poor grades. So we didn't want it to be a reactive process when we started doing RTI Scheduler. It's a simple program. As I said, Ms. Patry does it all for us. RTI Scheduler is a planning tool not only for our students but our teachers. It requires purposeful planning, like I said, not only for intervention cycles, which is super important for question number 3, but also relationship building and enrichment cycles as well. For example, and I added a little note here, during accreditation this week, we had a math intervention on fractions, a book club group, games club, and Mr. Kessner did a Mountain Dew taste test with the 7th graders, which then sent them to my class afterwards. So that was an adventure. And then Miss Riley did a coffee shop group recently that the kids have not stopped talking about. So that relationship building has been a really important tool with RTA Scheduler as well. Mr. Dishman already talked about the setup. So it's loaded in with rosters from Power School. And then there is an open tool for students so that they could add themselves, or it's a closed tool where like I've only added 7 kids in. I do that for like student council meetings and stuff like that as a reminder. So I said, for example, I would close my Y-Top makeup testing group, but I would leave drama club open. So like I want people to add themselves into that, but I don't need kids to add themselves into Y-Top makeup. Like that should not be the option. The tool is primetime specific, but if we talk to Miss Riley, she can add in lunchtime meetings or other meetings where we can label like it's a class meeting, it's a senior class meeting, it's student council at lunch on Thursdays or FBLA. We can add those in there. It's not only allows us to plan, schedule, and implement, but it also tracks attendance, which is amazing. So we know where our kids are or should be. And so as soon as prime time starts, there's always an email that says missing, and then we start listing kids. Sometimes it's because they weren't marked absent the first hour, or they signed out, or they got called out, or they're at a dentist appointment, but the office will let us know, or somebody else lets us know that they saw them. It's like Power School, where you can see if you could mark as a student is present, absent, or tardy. With our PLC protocols, data collection, and even RTA scheduler only work when we're talking with our peers, and subject area or not. So we're talking as a 7th grade team, we're talking as an 8th grade team. It's an essential part of the PLC process that we rely on our team members as sounding boards and classroom supports. I share a corner of the school with 2 math teachers. They really love how loud I talk. But me and Miss Logan are matching energy this year, so we have to close our doors sometimes. But the process can be used during district level mentoring process, as Ms. Morrison said, building PLC groups, and then completely independent of these groups with our singletons, as I am. Ed rounds, we talked, I think that's up here too. So ed rounds are principal-based or group-based. Ed rounds begin with a pre-brief meeting that include our guiding questions for what we're looking for with our pop-ins. We generally stop in for 10 to 12 minutes. I've been in a group with my mentee and then the 2 other mentors during this year for Pine High School, and then Sweeter leads those. So he gives us the guiding questions with that. We go to no more than 2 classrooms during that time to ensure that we can actually debrief during the class period instead of waiting for the next day or an email debrief or whatever. While we look in the classrooms, we use Sweeter's, as you guys have heard, I'm sure 100 times, his glows and grows, where what is good, what do we need to work on? Where we write down positives and growing points for our peers as well as our students. So, hey, we noticed that so-and-so does really well in science. What are you doing right? So having that question again, like, what am I missing with this kid? I can't get him to be quiet. Mm-hmm. The most important part of Ed Round process is the debrief. What did we notice and what can we take to our classrooms? So what can we use again? As we mentioned in the PLC process, we have recurring cycles of intervention and enrichment. That's part of our RTA scheduler as well. Within our curriculum, our ELA curricular resource right now, we have data points that have really driven our PLC process because there is an assessment tool within it that has a pre, a mid, and a post assessment, and we've done the pre and mid, which has changed our PLC questions and supports during these last 2 times that we've been able to meet as a district PLC, because we've all given that 7, 8, 9, and 10. We did not give it in 11th because we're really digging into ACT prep, so we didn't give the mid for 11th grade. They set in detail with specific standards that our students are successful at, and then, most important part, what we need more time on. Also within the resource, we can support our learners through guided reading practices for intervention and extended reading practices for enrichment for each of our units. So that is built into each of the units currently. As a district, our push has been the final 2 questions in our process, both at the elementary and secondary levels, are putting in the work through communicating, collaborating, celebrating, as well as purposely planning both our enrichments and interventions for our students. Do you have any questions?
How often do you do the educational rounds?
So we've done ed rounds, at the beginning of the year, we did them monthly, just to get those new teachers into other people's rooms, so that they felt comfortable, because like a lot of times you don't get to talk. You don't get to talk during the day, you don't get to see other people working, so it was really purposeful to like get those new staff members in somebody else's classroom. What are you guys doing? How can I see this? And then we kind of taper it off, and then we do it about every 3 to 5 weeks.
Okay.
And the groups are no more than 4 teachers in Sweeter, sometimes 5 teachers, but like when 5 teachers in Sweeter walk into a classroom, you instantly derail it. It's not going to be ignored when you see everybody walk in, right? So that becomes like, we've gotta be purposeful about who are we going to see, because if they're taking a test, or if they are reading silently, we're not gonna want to like interrupt by stepping into their space.
Right. More questions?
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
There's a couple of videos in the PowerPoints. That one on the last page is on peer observations. Then there's a video also, I think in Jerry's presentation, on kids talking about interventions and all, and how impactful they are.
So even the kids weigh in.
You can watch them
Yeah.
on your own time.
Okay. All right.
That's 6 and 8.
Well, thank you all very much. It was, Julianne and Mike were able to.
And Kendra, yeah,
were pretty, and so the rest of us, we weren't there, and so that's why we made this request to have you guys come and present, because you went to a lot of work, a lot of time, and you did a great job representing our district to the accreditation team, so thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And I'll just follow up, like, I stayed the morning, so I didn't get to see any of what you guys just presented right now, but it's amazing how much you think you know what's going on, and then when we sit and watch you and see everything that you're doing in your classrooms, or with PLCs or whatever, that, we don't know about. And that's the main reason that, we were
like,
kind of instrumental in saying, and we never wanted you guys to think that this was like a command performance, that you had to come and do this. I mean, we wanted to celebrate with you, because we so appreciated what we saw just in the part of that we got to go to. And what you just presented tonight just reinforced that. There's just so much that you're doing that is good for us to know.
Well, and also, when we send people to conferences and they come back and say, yeah, it's well worth it, that as a board member, that makes me feel like we're doing something responsible, sending good people to conferences, and coming back with what you came back with, so that was good feedback as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is the reviewing of the regular session agenda. And so now we need to click on that and then. Yes.
None of you want to stay?
I don't know, I was gonna get at the end of it.
Thank you. All right. Now we're at the proposed agenda for Monday. We'll wait till. Thank you again.
Thank you. Sorry, it's my anniversary, so.
Well, thanks for sacrificing. All right, so we will start with general business. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. And then if there's any recommended changes to the agenda and approval of the agenda. Will we have any recognitions, do we know, on 1.4? Do we know yet?
We sure hope so.
Yeah. Oh, fun was.
After this weekend.
This weekend. Okay.
Might be a change.
Okay, so that will be there, 1.4 recognition.
We do have, Madam Chair, just those 2 documents that were added in there as well.
Yeah, those will be exciting to to recognize and to celebrate. Then 1.5 is visitor and patron comments. Then, we'll move to the consent agenda, and please read the minutes and check those over. And then I know later on Misty will add the warrants, so please check those over as well. And we'll have executive session minutes and regular school board minutes. And then we'll have a financial report. And I know between now and then, Misty will also have that information to us beforehand, so look that over as well. And then we'll have the alternative school calendar application. I think we've been chatting a little bit over that, so any changes with that, Justin?
So this one sneaks up on us, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board. We were operating under the old Chapter 22 rules, which meant that we needed to have our renewal request in by May 1st. I found out at the end of last week that the new Chapter 2 rules are now on the governor's desk for signing. He's busy though doing other things, so I'm not sure. The irony of it is that he has until April 8th to sign it, but if he signs it, it means the due date is now April 1st. So
Okay.
I am going to ask the board on Monday to allow us the opportunity to move forward with applying for a 5-year alternative schedule, because I don't think we're leaving the 4-day week, with the understanding, Madam Chair, that I will most likely not have next year's calendar finalized by then. I've been working with the calendar committee, and we've run into a couple of bumps and questions, and so in order to finalize that, I probably won't have it, I know I won't have it with their consent by Monday, so I'd like to move forward with the application of a 4-day school week for kids, understanding that I'm going to ask you later on in probably in April to approve at least 1, if not 2 years of what that calendar would look like.
Okay. Any questions?
You're brave enough to put a 5-year plan out with it being an interim study at the legislature.
Well, I think what the best part about this is that we don't have to reapply every 2 years or go through the survey. At 90, by the way, it's 97% right now of approval from stakeholders.
Where are those 3%ers?
What's that?
Where are those 3%?
Yes, they're vocal. I got some comments, but anyways, that's what I'm gonna ask the board to consider on Monday is the approval of moving forward with the application without a final 25-26 calendar in front of you. So.
Okay, all right. Any further question, board? Then we have a request for policy IHC.
It's actually IHCD, and Madam Chair, we can discuss this more. This is a student who is on a specific post-secondary plan, and some of the prerequisites we don't offer. Policy IHCD talks specifically about college credits outside of what we offer, and since we don't have a agreement with this particular institution, by policy it says we can't accept it for credit. We are asking for the board to consider allowing us to consider this for credit. There's a letter there for you.
Okay.
And this is a policy that doesn't have those famous words of with superintendent approval. So it's best to go through the board on this and just seek case-by-case issues that come up.
Okay, so we need to do our due diligence reading through this.
Please do.
Great, okay.
I have a question. Really? Before we do that, would somebody actually go through the syllabus of that course to ensure that it aligns with what we've approved otherwise in courses like that? Just to make sure it's...
Yes, and we can, and if you would like something deeper, I can get it for you, Ms. Wilson. Since this letter was sent to you by one of our counselors and not a parent or something, I feel like that due diligence may have already been covered.
Can we just confirm that it was?
I can absolutely confirm that it was.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? class. Okay, we'll have, old business, there's none, but then we move to policy. Our student data security policy, and there's some attachments there that go with that, with this particular policy. I believe this is one that came about because of our recent dilemma with Power School.
I got an email.
Pardon?
I got an email from Power School.
You did?
There's the
Did you will
that my data was involved.
Okay.
Which would be 2 years for anybody involved, 2 years of credit monitoring and 2 years of credit freeze, I think,
Okay.
provided by Power School
Through experience, so.
I've gotta go on and do something.
Basically just sign
It's
up.
really
Yeah,
simple.
sign up for that, I've gotta,
It's really simple. Lifelong.
So, if we could
I have that.
review those attachments before Monday, look them over, and if you have questions for Justin, give him, do that beforehand so that he's got some heads up.
And that would be second and final.
Yeah.
Second.
Second.
Sorry, I don't have
That's
it
right.
for you, but it'll be-
I was thinking
we'll
of
have
the
the
second
motion.
and final.
Yeah, we'll have the motion in there for you, I apologize. Second and final.
All right. And then, we'll have executive session to discuss personnel and legal. And then we have some hires and transfers and resignations there to consider, and some letters to read. And then 8.2 is our administrator contract renewals. We're at that time of the year again. So, there's the list there. So we'll have probably some discussion in personnel and legal. And then our information and discussion, Lance will be giving us our facilities update. And then Tracy will have a curriculum CCC update. And Justin gets to do the legislative update, right?
I think it might be the final one for this year. We'll see how.
All right. And then our upcoming conferences. And then we have the rest of our meeting dates for COW and regular board meetings. So is there any questions regarding the agenda for Monday night? Questions? All right. And let's go back to tonight's work session items. We have the governance manual. And Mike, this was something you wanted us to consider. We talked about this last COW meeting. We didn't have a very full house with board members, so tonight we've got everybody here. So I feel like we can all weigh in better.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Apparently, everybody realized that we would continue to postpone this until they all showed up, so we'll take our bad medicine and get it done with, right? Thank you. As you requested, Heidi, I did email all the board members the verbiage of what I would like to have added to that board governance manual. It is in red at the bottom of your screen there. Again, although there was comment made last month about, that if a motion is deemed inappropriate or contentious, then with 9 board members, if 5 of them vote against it, then it would kill it at that time. And to me, this isn't about whether or not we can actively move a motion towards approval or not. This is more towards having in writing you know, a sense of decorum, how we're going to, conduct our meetings. It's if nothing else, I mean, it provides a commitment to transparency and openness for not only just us as a board, but also our constituents and, members of our staff and that sort of thing. Is the rationale and I'm gonna say that the purpose behind wanting to add this little bit of a change to our governance manual.
Okay, I'll open it up to teammates. Does anybody wanna weigh in on how you feel one way or the other? Julianne?
I was hoping somebody else would weigh in first. You know, I mean, I can see the pros and cons to this. I guess at first I was thinking that, okay, if we did this, then, like, especially this time of year, there's change happening all the time. You know, all of a sudden people are resigning and we're hiring people, and sometimes there's additions between now and Monday night to add people, new hires. But help me understand, that's not really changing the motion, right? I
No,
mean, the motion is already gonna say, we approve to hire such and such. Even though maybe at the cow meeting, we think we're hiring this person and this person and this person, and by the regular night, we're hiring 5 more. It's not gonna change anything, right? I mean,
Right.
you guys get where I'm coming from.
Right. No, it doesn't, it's not gonna stop the business of the district, right? So if you get an additional resignation on Friday between the cow and the regular meeting, that resignation would still go on there because it's the original motion. You just add a name. Right?
I've got another, scenario, sometimes we have to vote on a bus or things like that. How would that affect that? Cause I know, sometimes we're like, oh, we have to get the paperwork done. It's not necessarily a hires or whatever, but it's a business transaction that needs to be acted upon.
Well, I'm trying to think back, how many other years I've been on the board, if there was ever a situation where, it was imperative that we, move on the purchase of a bus immediately, I mean, even if, we understand that a bus has gone down or whatever, it's still, I mean, it's not like we're gonna run down to,
Well, I was just thinking that a couple meetings ago, or in my tenure as a board member, I mean, there was something that we needed to add it to the agenda because the financing there was a short window to deal with the purchase of a bus. I mean, I remember that. So that's why I was like, how would that affect business like that?
Mr. Prantani, you have anything that?
Sorry, Madam Chair, I do agree, we did have that situation where it was the opportunity to apply, it came through and we jumped on it. I would tell you that if we had the understanding that the board wished to act in a certain way when it comes to setting the agenda, we would follow that. And so, I mean, we're at your prerogative on this.
I just didn't wanna cut your nose off to spite your face, kind of thing. I mean, I see where you're coming from with respect of, not just having something rash come about, but I just don't wanna tie our hands, I guess. And I'm curious about, is there gonna be a scenario that we tie our hands on,
In relation to that, can you remember, I do remember the bus thing, but did that come up between cow and
Yeah,
board?
it did.
It did.
Madam Chair.
Matt?
So, if you go through the Open Meetings Act, statute does not specifically say that at any time, any board member can bring something to the agenda. Now, you may be arguing that that wasn't sufficient time to have the notice in place, but it doesn't state in that statute that any board member cannot bring something to the agenda. So this here, I'm not in favor of.
Is there a way that we could write it? There would be a gentleman's agreement, right? Because again, the intent of this is the agreement amongst us of how we're going to conduct our business to keep things from not, like, to give everybody a chance to have ample time to think about what's gonna be done, or to get the information to be able to make adequate votes, to ensure there's time where votes aren't made emotionally, like you have time to consider the facts, ask questions, do things like that. I think that's the intent of this. So with that being, considered, is there a way that we could incorporate that in here that would be the same? It's that gentleman's agreement that, we're going to give time for everybody to have the information they need to make a decision, not just throw something out to where there's ramifications later. Does that make sense is there a way to?
Well, Billy, the entire board governance manual, there's nothing in there that is statutorily, we are bound statutorily to act. That governance manual is more of a code of conduct that we hold ourselves to. And if I spent some time between last month and this month kind of reviewing that, and again, that was, thanks to your hard work, and pushing for that to get that adopted, it's pretty clear in there as far as responsibilities and duties that the board takes, what the superintendent takes. Statutorily, there's, as far as, other than the physical responsibility of the board, but as far as making sure that our superintendent has the information that the board is requesting and giving him ample time to do that, that is listed in the manual as a form of decorum, as a form of courtesy to make sure that our superintendent has time to gather that information, to provide that to the board so that the board can make those decisions. There's nothing in the open meetings law that would say that you couldn't come up to the meeting and say, Mr. Superintendent, we would like to have this, this, and this. You wouldn't do that because you set somebody up to fail. And I think that in order for us to be transparent and to do the best work that we can, then you want to be as open as you possibly can and give people an opportunity to be deliberate and thoughtful about all their decisions.
I hold the same spot I have. I've sat here for 2 years, and I think we're trying to make a solution to a problem that we can't even fix in the grand scheme of things. I've had past board members that said, hey, I want something on the agenda, and they work for 6 months and it won't get there. It never raised to the level of saying, well, I'm gonna go garner 5 votes, but when it gets there, gentlemen's agreement or not, I think we all, 99% of the time, have a gentleman's agreement to work together. That's what we're here in the room looking at each other. Like, I'm not gonna die on the hill, but I see no value in putting some red ink, some more stuff in a governance manual that has no teeth when it comes to the board meeting Monday night. This CAL meeting is for all of us. We could show up to a board meeting Monday night with really a pretty skeleton of an agenda, and it's going to go on. What happens between this CAL meeting and Monday night, there's nothing sacred. If there's 5 votes, each board member has the prerogative to, if he has one vote. If one board member says, I want to put this on the agenda, if they can't get it moved, they can't. It's legally, like gentleman's agreement or not, I understand the decorum. I think we watched 40 days of it in Cheyenne. But ultimately, the next time somebody's elected, I've said it the same way, and I got called Esther Davison, a great past board member. She said, the governance manual is the ballot box for the 9 people here. We could put a governance manual together, guess what? 3 election cycles, the people may vote the governance manual out if they aren't getting what they want. So I just think that we could spend however much time. I don't want to spend any time. I don't think I'll speak one time. I have no need to argue it. I don't support it. We're just wasting our time.
I have a question though. In January, I thought I understood that the rules started to become that if you want something on the agenda, like cow agenda discuss or whatever, you have to do it the month before. So if we're putting that in place, this is, to me, is just another level of that, allowing people to be prepared. If you wanna talk about something and it's important to you, but you have to wait a month, then to me, this is the second piece of that, of you not coming between cow and the board meeting and adding things. Or really just bringing something tumultuous to a board meeting. But it still gives people time to work through answers to be given, data to be given, whatever the case might be. But am I understanding that correct, that was kind of put in place in January?
It was put in place out of respect for our superintendent, because a lot of times we get these requests for the cow meeting, and it only gives him about 3 days to get information together. And I didn't think that was very respectful to Justin to have to jump through hoops when some of this information takes time to gather. So that's basically an agreement that he and I had, because I feel that that's respectful to him. As far as, I know I've lost my train of thought. What was your other question?
Well, essentially, like, it's doing the same thing, because if you bring something unknown Monday, it's not very respectful, because nobody has the time to do.
Right.
And it's the vote night.
And,
Well, but at the
another
same,
thing that I learned, just as parliamentary procedure etiquette, most of the time, if you don't have the votes, you shouldn't bring forth a motion. If you don't, I mean, that's that gentleman's agreement again. So, that's just one thing that I researched in this whole process. So that's just something to throw out there and consider. But yes, Monday nights are the vote.
and any member can bring forward a motion to table something at the same time. Am I wrong on that? So if we table something, it pushes it back for that discussion time.
You're right.
That's where you have to play politician and convince 5 people to table it, or 4 votes with you to table it though.
If you're passionate about
Yeah.
something.
Well, that's where you're putting everybody at a disadvantage, because they haven't had time to.
Right. Well, but if you
You're
feel,
obviously thought about it, because you've been, working to pull it too, not you personally, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
in
I'm
a
with you.
scenario, whoever's bringing it forward has done a lot of thinking about it. Those who just get that information on Monday night and a vote night, I mean, we've seen this bite us in the butt, really, is what we're going with, right, recently, we've seen this bite us in the butt.
but again, if you feel you're uninformed and need more time, make the motion to table.
How many times has this happened before that we're bringing this up now? I mean, honestly.
A couple of times in this past year, to where there's enough where it's worth the conversation, because it's uncomfortable.
I, will just say a couple things, and, Cody, you're exactly right. There is, procedural activities that can happen to, delay a motion. I believe that, in light of motions that happened last fall, and the, untrust and the disappointment and the discussions from the community, I think the board would benefit from, something more than lip service, an actionable item. Heidi, you said that, you wanted to, change the way that the Cal, agenda was to provide, Mr. Parantoni some opportunity to gather information out of respect. I'm gonna just ask one question. Doesn't our community deserve the same kind of respect? Last, November, the community was told that, that was not gonna be an actionable item. And nobody showed up to, or a portion of people did not show up to voice their opinion because they were told that that was not gonna be an actionable item. Now, whether a board member has ability to, persuade members of the board to push a motion or get a second and vote for a motion to be moved upon or not, and the theatrics that are involved in that, it is what it is. I think that as a board, we owe our community the same kind of respect that we are trying to provide our superintendent and our staff. I agree with you. I think that was a great move that you did.
Kendra, I cut you off.
Oh,
You had
good.
something to say.
Oh, good.
I apologize for
I'm
that,
listening and soaking it in and.
but I apologize for cutting you off. So if you have something to say, weigh in.
Good.
Anybody else?
Madam Chair.
Ma'am.
This in particular item that we're talking about that happened last fall was first brought up in September. That is plenty of time for everybody, all of us board members, to do their job. So we have plenty of time, plenty of notice.
Not for the way it played out, if you think about it, because at the Cal, I am the one that said that because that was the understanding. And then it turned around for the meeting itself. And there were just some unfortunate ramifications from that. We would like to just put some checks and balances in place to ensure that that stuff doesn't happen regularly, I guess.
Jared?
Madam Chair. I mean, I hate beating a dead horse and I wanna move on so much on this, on all of this, especially what's been in the past. One of the things that, you know, when we talk about all this is we can't just single out one little thing that's in the governance board. We should also look at a lot of other things in here. 2.9 in particular, if everybody wants to pull that up. Both 1 and 3 is one thing that stuck out at me when I start reading this. And I'll read it out loud. This is under community relations. So as a whole, as a board, as we're deliberating and we're having conversations and going through emails and everything else that we're doing, the board will hold itself accountable on the citizens of the district by focusing on the district's strategic plan, vision, mission, core values, and expectations of the district. That was number 1. Number 3 that stuck out was the board will maintain an awareness of the community values, concerns, and interests. And me being a new board member and being right in the fire in the beginning of this, back in that November, it was very clear to me that this is a community value awareness issue when we had so many people there that something had to been taken care of and talked about and brought up. And I don't see why we need to adjust what we have in here if everything was done to specs, if you will, regarding quorum. So I'm not in favor of this.
All right. As Julian.
I'm just gonna make one more comment, and it's sort of in response to Jared asking how many times has this whole issue really been an issue? And I mean, I respect Billy saying that there's been maybe a time or two in the last year, but I would say in all my time on the board, it really hasn't been. You know, I mean, it just seems like, people have had adequate time to, you know, look at the agendas, do what they need to do. You know, I mean, and there's always gonna be, all of a sudden, something comes up that's, this is the first time. And because of that, I don't always think that we should be reactionary to that one time. You know, it's like, and we all do know that sometimes procedures, policies, or whatever, you don't have one until you need one. And then that's at the time that you go ahead and make one. But, you know, I guess all I'm trying to say right now, I'm just trying to answer your question, that in all my time on the board, there just has not been very many issues like this at all.
Well, I appreciate you also researching that as far as like the decorum that's already there in place. So has everybody weighed in? How they weigh in? Okay, should we do this as a consensus?
So, Madam Chair, so what are we doing now? Are we gonna are you asking for a consensus? Do we move it forward or not? I mean,
Right.
is that?
Do we wanna add?
But it's not policy.
It's not policy,
No,
but
no.
this
So
is
is
just
it
our
even in-
procedure. Is this something we want board to add to the governance manual? I guess that's how I see it. How do you see it, Kendra?
I mean, I don't know if it can go to a vote where it's not policy.
It would be a vote like here, because
Like a
it's not an official
consensus.
vote.
Right.
We're
Just
just
a
agreeing as a
consensual.
board or not agreeing as a board.
Well, I
To make the
personally
change.
don't ever wanna have to go through what we went through last fall, ever again. Because I don't feel, and I agree with Mike on this, I don't feel that all of our stakeholders had the opportunity to share their opinions. I don't. I'm like Jared, I don't wanna revisit it. I believe our teachers, our curriculum director, they're all moving in a positive direction. I mean, through the CCC, I've seen some of the work that they're doing. And they're gonna make things happen, but I do not wanna have to go through that ever again as a board member. Because I made the vote, I know how I voted, I regretted it. I made that public. Because I did not feel that I had enough time to really ingest this, and then I felt like at the board meeting, it was such a wildfire. I will continue to use that word. It was such a wildfire on one side, and
All right, so I know for sure that Mike, Kendra, and Billy are for the red letter version. Michael, Matt, Julianne, Cody,
I'm a no.
you're no, Jared?
No.
I'm not in favor of it as well, so I believe the consensus is that we'll just hold ourselves to the decorum that was written by Billy earlier, and
By us, we did it as
well,
a team.
but you put that, I mean, not like, but I mean, you put a lot of time into that, Billy. That's what I meant, not that Billy wrote it, but she did put a lot of time in that, so. We will move on to athletic fees. And this was Cody's.
No, this was mine. Again, just thinking, cause right now, we're on a 7-year rotation for uniforms. Football jerseys, just thinking of a big contact sport. It's really hard on stuff. After 3 seasons, look really shabby. The thought process is just not necessarily to fully offset 100% everything, but to kind of build line, and I know we have the rec grants and everything. I grew up 25 years ago now, man, I'm getting old. In high school, and I paid athletic fees. Back then, it was $75 at my high school, or my school district, it was $75 a sport. With a cap per family of $225. And I'm just putting that number out there. And that money there went into directly, I believe, to the, sport that you were playing. But there were also fees for band, there were fees for FFA, there was fees for science club, German club. Everything had a fee. It allowed the school and the district to do more things, to get more involved along the lines of whatever that club or extracurricular activity was headed for. Again, there were, for kids on either reduced lunch or free lunch, they had the same waiver. For athletic fees were waived. But my thought process is to put it into, if we went ahead with it, a central fund that, you know, if the volleyball team at Pine needed new jerseys one year, they can dip into it. Again, it's a giant pool to keep up to date because technology changes on everything. I'm kind of talking in circles here, I apologize. My mind's going about 19 directions. But also with becoming, again, Burns bounces back and forth between we're either a really big 2A school or we're a really small 3A school every 2 years. Right now, and I know it's trending back down towards 2A again, it looks like next year. But there's going to be a time when we're back to 3A. And when you get into those 3A and 4A athletics, or even, not necessarily clubs because they don't fall under classifications, but we get more and more sports coming to us. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised in 10 years if we have a lacrosse team somewhere, or something along those lines, of downhill skiing in Pine or something, you know, on the bluffs. We're gonna compete against Jackson. But
Maybe High Point.
yeah, something.
High Point at Alvin.
And I'm saying that, of course, you know, jokingly, of course, with that one, but, you know, I can see us just continually grow and grow and grow, and anytime we grow, there are more and more needs. I mean, we've added indoor track, 3-4 years ago now? Is that about 2020 around COVID?
COVID, yeah.
We brought our own team in, and this year we've added girls wrestling. We just keep growing and growing and growing in athletics, and the pool is only so deep, and you can't take nothing out of nothing. And so if there's nothing there and we continue to grow, the last thing I want, for one, is these kids not to be involved. The second thing would be, heaven forbid, we have to get rid of something and maybe we have to look at a Title IX issue or something. There's that potential out there too, which I don't foresee that, but you never know. So that's just kind of my 30,000 overhead thought process from about 19 different bullet points in 35 seconds, so.
Well, when you originally brought this up, I called around to different districts to see who is and who isn't. And one district that does is Campbell County, but they don't bring in a lot of extra revenue. It's like for t-shirts, warm-ups, like for things that kids can keep is basically, and they have like a scale to, like, you know, kids that are on free and reduced or whatever. But as far as like it actually becoming a help to the program, an income to it, it really hasn't been that much of an added base value to it. But I do feel that in this conversation that we probably, depending on what legislature decides for funding, we might be having some very difficult conversations. Somebody raising their hand?
No,
Okay.
you just
Sorry,
hit what you just hit what I was thinking.
You know, I guess as our chairman, I'm feeling this necessity of, we might have to agree to be uncomfortable with what is perhaps gonna start coming towards us. And like, you know, we're losing kids, but we have all these activities. We're here as an education, to educate first. So I'm just saying, you know, we were visiting with Mr. Parentoni about like when we have these big tournaments, Wyoming High School Athletics Association requires us to pay for, referees, the refs.
And their prices have gone.
And it's exorbitant.
Yeah,
We were
and
talking,
doesn't
it was
cover
almost
the-
like what you pay a para for one tournament, you know? So I do feel like we need to have some eyes on some of this.
And that's kind of, you know, it's not necessarily, a rainy day fund, but kind of. You know, again, like you said, our numbers are right now trending down. The other thought is, I don't know how many times in the count, let's say I just finished wrestling, so this is my 7th season of coaching. And anytime something is free, you do end up with people that do show up, take advantage of it for a period of time, and then fail. This is an investment also for them. I mean, our coaches, and we'll get to some of that stuff here in a minute, but we do end up with quite a few volunteer coaches in every sense of that word. And again, they coach because they love to coach, but it is hard to show up as a volunteer coach when you've got a kid that you've invested time in. I won't give a number because it varies from, you know, sport to sport, kid to kid. And then all of a sudden, Kendra, where'd you go?
I was tired.
So you get that, you know, and all of a sudden they're just gone and you just sit there and you go, man. So again, so that's a little bit personal to me. And again, I just think.
There'd be some skin in it.
Exactly, you'd have skin in the game. That's a great way to put it.
Kendra.
Maybe Justin can answer this. Do we still charge admission?
Yeah.
Because I remember being an athletic director when we did this. We started that to help offset some of the expenses associated with our activities. You know, our officials' fees and uniforms and, you know, and they were a big part of that. I'm just curious
We
if.
still charge gates, and concessions usually go to whatever organization runs it.
Right, right.
Now, when we have tournaments, do teams pay an entry fee? Does that offset?
Usually, yes.
Does that
an entry
offset
fee.
the?
Like for track and, I know they did for track.
They do pay, but it varies on, we also pay when we go places.
Right, that's true. I got that too.
Right.
But I didn't know if it offset the officials' fees, like
Oh,
what you
never.
bring in, never, okay?
But we do only charge $3 for admission, and students and staff are free,
Right.
at least in Pine.
And board members.
Yeah.
Well, we got our
And you can buy like an annual pass.
Have you been paying?
Yeah, 'cause that's what we,
Use
we
that
used to
blue
do at
card.
the time is, you know, for people who signed up, like the first day, we'd have the back to school fair. And I would sit out in commons
to sell pass.
and, well, I'd sell passes and then I'd get parents to sign up to take tickets or to line judge or to keep book or whatever. And then they got a family pass for that. But
But you know, I take a look.
they still do that. They still do that.
The
Skills
spreadsheet.
USA has our.
So I have a question, so this is really good data, I think.
It is.
This is really, so is this what's the time frame on this? Is this last year?
23, 24 actual.
23, 24, okay.
So,
I think it's pretty eye-opening where we spend some of our money.
What's co-curricular?
I was
Yeah,
gonna
well,
ask that
yeah.
too, yeah.
I actually asked, and I can forward you the email, cause I asked your,
Co-curricular is gonna be your salaries for your AD. It's gonna be National Honor Society, Academic Club,
class.
junior and senior class sponsors.
Yep, academic clubs, supplies and dues and fees. Yeah, I did ask that question, I can forward it to the board, cause I was like, hey.
I know.
I mean, I'll look at the breakdown and I'll see, you know, tape, you know, those, you know, the training supplies that we have, you know, just some of those pieces as well. Plus we have some salary partners.
You know what else I think would be interesting in this is like next to some of these, under the salaries, how many people is that make up that amount? You know, like, for example, chess club, I assume that's one person, you know, one employee. You know, versus boys basketball, I'm assuming that's probably And this includes junior high too, right? So, I mean, I'm assuming then that's 5.
Depending on school.
Well, yeah, exactly, but I think that would be,
Mr. Parentoni,
Sorry.
the extracurricular transportation reimbursed just like route buses in the state?
Yes and no. We can take, we can't go any further than 150 miles into any adjoining state.
Great.
So, I mean, we have that, and transportation's reimbursed a year later, right? So we know that that happens. And we cannot use them for any type of summer camps that's reimbursed, so can't use them for that. And, I think probably the one that we've learned the most on is that we have the ability to use MPVs for some things, but only under certain rules. And so, for the most part, it's reimbursed. But we have some rules that our transportation and Ms. Gallegos help us stay well in line with. So.
What was that acronym, MPV?
What's that?
What was that acronym?
Motorized personal vehicle.
MPV.
Suburban. Multi-purpose vehicle.
Expeditions.
So when we take a Suburban, so we can take a Suburban on a football trip as long as it's hooked up to an equipment trailer, but it cannot have kids in it. If it has kids in it, it's not reimbursable. If we take a Suburban on a football trip and it's not hooked up to an equipment trailer and it takes kids, it's not reimbursable. So there's just little nuances in the rules that we have to play along with and go through.
So how would it work? You know, and I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
like this year when we went to the wrestling tournament up in Riverton, we had 4 or 5 boys. And so instead of taking a big bus up there, we took a Suburban.
And that was reimbursable.
Oh, that is okay.
Jared, you had something?
Yeah, no, back to his comment in the very beginning when you're talking about, fees and everything else. I mean, we have a lot of different things that we got going on, both Pine and Burns. What's the population of kids that are in each football, track,
Or all of
or all, I mean, like, at what level? So if you're talking about I'm just saying if there is any fees or anything like that parents would put out, we should probably see how many kids are in there. So if it narrows it down and be like, is it really worth even having that discussion anymore?
Good point. Just take a.
We did it. I think other states most certainly has. I know when we came from, did the same thing. So when come here and you're just like, oh, I don't even know what to do now. All this extra money. No.
And again, I guess one of my biggest fears is us getting in a situation where we have to cut a sport and it is that one student that absolutely lives and dies for that sport. And that's the reason he goes to school, he stays eligible, is because of that one sport. If we were to have to have a sacrificial lamb out there, cut it, and all of a sudden you got this kid that is totally disinterested in everything that goes on between 8 and 3:30. I know that's close enough to our school day hours, but that we lose a kid, and that is the last thing I think any of us want. So
The third part that's part of that, especially with the economy, is there's a lot of families that don't qualify for free or reduced lunch, but they don't have an extra 75 or whatever the number we're gonna put on it to put towards sports.
And honestly, I use it for gas. I mean, as much as, all these travels, and everyone knows that, has kids in the district that travel all the time with the kids, you're using it for fuel. I mean, everybody that's going to Buffalo this weekend already knows where that's going, so, in their own Suburban to carry everything, so.
And Madam Chair, Mr. Nussbaum, I would contend that if we felt like we are starting to get super strapped, you take a look at that meals and rooms column and then officials fees. If you just want to reduce the number of contests you go to, you change the outcome of your bottom line. And we are at a point where we like to go to a lot of places and provide our kids a lot of competition. I think we would probably, or it would make sense that we would start looking at the expense of some things before we got to the point where we were totally dropping out of the sport. I think probably just as much of a reality is the continued want to expand a sport or expand to other sports that forces you to reduce access in other sports.
Does this include, that was the other question I had, does this also include fuel and all that with the buses?
No, because it's reimbursable, this would just be.
About a year later, we have to come up with the front.
Perfect.
Julianne, you had something you wanted to say?
No,
No? Okay.
well, I did, but I think it got answered somewhere along the line.
I mean, this is, a very interesting spreadsheet. Mike?
All right, Mr. Parentoni.
No.
On your sheet here, it says that, the funding model provides 680 or 658,000 and some hundreds of dollars there. It provides that funding. Is that funding based upon schools or students in the district, or is it based upon students that participate in activities? Or is it based upon numbers of activities that they go to? Because previously you said that if you look at what is spent on meals and rooms and official fees, that's $154,000.
Right off the cuff, that was nice.
Yep. If you were to reduce the number of contests, so you would naturally reduce the rooms and meals probably and the official fees, does that affect what is in the funding model?
No. This is our per student ADM.
So it wouldn't take much at all to eliminate that deficit that we're currently of 53,000 that we're having to pay to supplement the sports
Right.
or the activities.
And you realize that half of that deficit was funded with ESSER, because for 23-24, indoor track was funded through ESSER funds. We pick up that entire bill for this year. And we provide a very nice, I mean, you look at everything that's on that, I think that appeals to about every kid that we have. I mean, it's a phenomenal thing that we offer, and we're very blessed to have those pieces.
So my kid on the piece that I think I would like to drill down on a little bit, because I value extracurriculars. I think they are very important. Everything on there I value. I think where we can make a difference as we look forward is funded in the funding model. The state's taking care of us to there. Under that next one, he just hit on it. 53,000 is not a very big mountain to climb. And as we go forward, that's the mountain in front of us, not the 712,000.
Right.
And that is a hill that we can climb with very minimal hurt and still
have
provide opportunity for a lot of kids. And the number, Jared, Justin just dug this out for a line in a presentation he gave. Pine Bluffs High School is 88% extracurricular and a lot of those are doubles. So if you break it down to or doubles, triples, quadruples, I mean, if you look here and say, my 5 kids that went through there, how many do they check off in there?
Right.
You have a lot of numbers. So if you split that down by the sheer numbers, I think maybe a future conversation, the athletic fee or the program fee gets to be a pretty small number, especially when you start bracketing it the same way we can on free and reduced lunch. I think it will be a decision that comes to us in the near future to gap the funding model versus what we're spending.
If I pulled the $75 that Mr. Nussbaum talked about, and I said that each graduating class in our district for the next 4 years is 75 kids, right? Roughly in that's about where we're at. It's a little higher right now, but that makes up $22,500 if every kid pays the $75 every year. I mean, I agree that there's a number there. I'm not sure you get every kid to pay for it. think you also have to realize that we don't dictate officiating fees.
Right, well,
This is
when I
WHSAA,
learned that, I'm like,
right?
whoa.
So, I mean, and that's outside of us, so, I mean, that being said, there is some prudence that we can exercise
Play
when we
rugby.
look at things too. When you're a school that doesn't have a nearest competitor in a winter sport, and then you figure out a way to play with a point system to at least not have to travel by jet airplane to your nearest competitor.
Or sled dog.
I mean, I think there's just some pieces that we work on. The other side of that is so due to our proximity to neighboring states, we tend to be on their court, no pun intended, for when we play them. That impacts weeknights. That impacts other types of pieces as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of tails that wag the activity dog in this one. And I agree with you, Ms. Randall, this is a great spreadsheet for you guys, for everyone to look at and go, it raises my eyebrows when I look at it every time and just go, wow, we get this, we have this, and we spent that, you know, it's pretty impressive.
So, just to put it in perspective, 712,000 is roughly a 20th of our budget?
I'll put that number down there at the bottom. That was the,
Oh, yeah, right there.
that was
That's what
the,
that was, look at this.
It's not quite a 20th.
right, but that was the operating budget for 23-24.
88 cents out of every dollar goes to extracurricular activities.
8 cents.
Yeah.
88 cents, sorry.
Whoa.
8.8 cents.
I'm like, wow, I thought that was salaries and.
It's not quite 9 cents, but it is.
But no, I appreciate the spreadsheet, that is amazing, and it's a great eye opener, so thank you very much for
And
that.
I would recommend to the board that if you choose whether it comes to your table or you want to pursue the conversation, that it is a very, I wouldn't say very, but it's a pretty healthy, long experience to go to stakeholders and to have them understand what this looks like and to go through this process. I don't think it's a short-term
Right.
policy decision. I think we definitely involve our sponsors and our ADs, and as we start talking about a plan, if our choice is to whittle away at something.
Right.
And that's why I bring this up every year, is just,
Well, and I think, right now, we're kind of holding our breath with legislature, seeing how the chips are gonna fall with that. So yes, I appreciate you bringing it up, and then I feel like, I think we're all aware now that there's perhaps some, keeping our eyes on some things. But I was very much blown away about how much we're required to pay officials.
well, the good news is,
I was like, maybe.
we gave a great plug to WHSSA official groups. If you wanna be an official, now's the time to join, because we make really good money.
You can make good money, yeah, okay.
They don't have enough.
My math was bad, 3.5 cents.
Is there any more?
As long as it's not 33.
Right, there you go, there you go. Is there any more discussion with this that we wanna entertain? All right, Justin, our legislative overview.
Yeah, so I'll probably just have a little bit more for you. I would say that we're in a different place than we were a month ago, as we watch things go through this process and unfold. I think when I spoke with you a month ago, there was 114 bills that dealt with education or something like that. As of tonight, there's been 41 that have been passed that impact education, whether it's through tax, income, or property tax, those types of things. And 2 more have been vetoed by the governor that are back on the floor for override. And I didn't see it. I know they went through the House yesterday. I didn't see how those were on the Senate today. So, and there's a couple more in there. So, I mean, we will have some policy work this spring based off of some of the things that passed. Some of those will be school safety, and some of them we definitely we'll talk about when we come here again. I think it was an interesting session to watch.
Is the ECA still, the last I saw, it was going to be fully funded and then head to the governor, is that still?
Madam Chair, my understanding is that ECA that was put in by Senator Nethercott last Monday or Tuesday has made it through that bill and is sitting on the governor's desk.
Okay.
So,
I was kinda tracking that one, but wasn't sure. All right.
I don't think mine is updating, cause I can see Matt has your attachments, mine still says updated documents will be uploaded on Wednesday afternoon.
I don't have any attachments on this one.
It's in that.
Oh, you're looking at a different.
I go to,
I don't have any
I go to Engagify, that one, and check out, but I'm.
Well, and I have read all those.
Engagify.
Yeah, I have read all those, I just was making sure I wasn't.
Yeah, no.
Like I've logged out, I've logged back in.
Okay.
like-
Okay.
Don't
Thanks,
cheat off
Matt.
don't cheat off your neighbor.
Okay, anything else, Justin, to add to that, or board?
Oh, I can tell you that, it was a very enjoyable opportunity to have Representative Eklund reach out a couple of times and ask questions about
I
things.
saw your emails to him,
So
and
I
I think the rest
appreciate-
of the board.
I appreciate
got
that continued relationship, so.
Very good, and I appreciate you answering him too. Thank you. All right, to number 4, policy review. We've got some policies here. Our coaching staff, 1. And we have this, this staff leave of absences, that's a new one.
Yeah, no, this current policy, I would like to postpone that one month.
Okay, that sounds like a good
As
plan.
we've continued to edit it, and I need to get it out in front of more people.
Okay,
So
sounds
I'd
good.
like to wait a month before we do that one.
And then, the instructional materials,
So IJJA is a adaptation of our current policy, which is about library materials, how someone would go about challenging library materials. This is a challenge to classroom materials. That's what IJJ would be.
I know
and
there's
so
like a form.
there will be a form that someone would fill out to go through that process. Tracy will share a lot more information about this, is that the IJJA, then your 2 IG forms there are a direct result of work in the CCC. And so, probably the biggest, we've looked at the resource framework, you've looked at that one. The change that we've come to is that when we put that together, we picked a number 30 days in front of stakeholders. Our experience afterwards was that they came with the first 7 were on the due date. And so we'd like that to go down to 21 to see if it helps the process a little bit. And then IG, that R3, that is how we will select materials. That's the vetting process conversation. And then that IJJA, which is 2 above it, is how people would challenge it.
Okay.
So with your permission, Madam Chair, I'd like to move IGDB and IJJA over to Monday for consideration for first reading, and then IGR2 and IGR3 over for your just.
It's a procedure.
As a procedure, just so.
Okay. Kendra was working really hard on the staffing formulas, so I think that one's ready.
I believe so,
So let's move that one to action for Monday
thank
night.
Justin and Misty and the ADs. I think through several meetings, we hammered out, and I think got it to the point where it eliminated the wording that created some of the issues that we had, and got it to, a decision where the coaches were on board and the ADs were on board, and I think it'll work.
Right.
I told them, you can't spend any more money, and you gotta be happy with it for an extended period of time, because we're not coming back to it.
Very good, very good.
And they did, don't you think, Justin?
All right, well, I think
It
that
took
one,
a couple of conversations, but we got to it.
how does everyone feel about that IJJA and IJJA?
Can I ask a question about the staffing one before we go
Sure,
on?
I'm sorry.
A couple of questions. So, first of all, I noticed that there's nothing in here anymore about C team, or C schedule.
Right.
And what was the rationale for taking that out? Just because it's just better just to have a minimum number of participants
I
and,
think so.
And what's the rationale, if there was one, going from 3 to 4 coaches minimum for football, no matter how many kids you had, or how few kids you had? Was there a rationale for that?
So Madam Chair, if you remember, I think you'll see it down at the very bottom on the second page there. It was already written in that they had a 4th coach if they had a JV schedule. And it was the only sport that we had that did that. So what the conversation came to is that we wanted to build a ratio that was never greater than 12 to 1. So in order for them to go to a additional coach, they would have to get to a number which is 1 over a multiple of 12.
But, you know, it's been a number of years ago, but there has been time in the past when we didn't have very many kids out for football. Kendra and I probably remember that. So, but even if we only had, let's say, 20 kids out for football, we'd still have 4 coaches.
You're probably not gonna have a JV schedule though.
Well, no, but they
20
took that
kids.
out. That's taken out. But I guess that's what I was just making sure I understood.
Yeah. I appreciate that, Julie, and I can tell you that this year and last year, ADs and principals have looked at their numbers and haven't always fully staffed based off of how many kids actually came out. So while this is a minimum that's in there, I can think of a couple of sports in the last 2 years that we haven't fully staffed because of the lack of interest in it. So
That makes sense, okay.
I looked at it and saw the same thing and had the same concern and say, I really think it's good for the most part. My question on the division, it all divides by 12.
plus 1 of 12.
What?
Plus 1 of 12. So it's never more than 12 to 1.
Yeah. But on all of them, minimum numbers of coaches, if that just goes to every 12 players, there's another coach. There is, because we have had some people come with some concerns of how we staff certain sports versus others. I've heard those from multiple spots. I have kids across multiple. If you just go in that one paragraph, 1 coach for every 12 participants, all the way down through there, and there's no minimum coaches that are different, that I will be bringing that Monday for a change of support on first reading. As I look at this, like girls, boys track, separate, I mean, I don't think it spends any more money. I just think it removes any optics from places of concern, and I do think there are some open doors. I can express that with you, concerns I have in another place if you'd like to, but that's something I would look at. So, but it's good. I mean, if money was no object, I would love to see the number to be 10, but that starts to get to be a bigger number.
We just saw that spreadsheet.
Yep.
All right, any more questions regarding that policy?
Just one. So, and again, you guys know what's near and dear to my heart, and we just finished it, which is wrestling.
I thought you were gonna say volleyball.
No. That was 2 seasons ago now. But, and again, it doesn't matter if we travel close to Cheyenne. We go to Douglas, we go to, where else were we at? Maybe just those 2.
Buffalo?
Yeah, well, Buffalo, we're in the same gym though, on that. So my concern with like the wrestling with only the 2 coaches, with 3 teams right there, I mean, granted, it's all listed, we all practice together, but they divide up. Like at Douglas this year, we had varsity boys up in the high school. They had junior varsity boys down in what they call, the den, and then they had girls over at the junior high. At East this year, junior high, or JV wrestled at Story, varsity, or no, I guess not this year, that was last year. But you can have 3 different locations, but only 2 coaches.
That was a big
That is
concern in our discussion.
And we cannot have volunteer coaches go and act as a head coach without a certified coach there.
where are your numbers?
Well, but what if, again, so you get 10 girls
you-
out and
you have-
12 boys, and then,
That you have combine all these?
it still could happen.
It still could happen.
It still could happen.
And I do think we did talk about that if there's a extenuating circumstance
Okay,
that we have a potential safety, because safety was
Yeah.
discussed, a safety concern, then that would be addressed.
okay.
That probably falls under that additional add a coach. Personnel may be considered pending athletic director and principal
Right,
recommendation.
there you go.
Well, and I think the other challenge is that wrestling is so new.
Yeah.
On so many different items, we don't have a predictable baseline,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah,
have,
we're the third year of girls
right, and
wrestling,
we have,
so.
I would call it that honeymoon period of it's new, it's something, it's doing, it's there. What does it look like in 2 years in terms of what we're growing, starting at the junior high level up through seniors in high school? We just don't have enough numbers yet to know that.
And that was my only concern, again, and it's strictly safety issues, I mean,
Yeah, we spent a lot of time discussing the safety concerns with all of that, and like Justin said, that was all brought up. This is new, we're getting our feet wet, we need to make sure that we have the opportunity to make changes as needed when something
okay.
presents itself.
Because right now, I mean, we're on the wave track in 3 years, projected if everything continues, to have a girls' team of 26, a boys' team of 26, and then a junior high team of 15 to 20, who knows on that, but again, projections, and everybody knows what the forecast was yesterday and what it was supposed to do and what it didn't do, so,
Right.
so we're talking the same thing there.
So is any more discussion for that, for Kendra's work? All
I
right,
just got them together.
how do we feel about moving IJJA and IJJA-E to Monday night? Do we need more time to look at that, or do we wanna move that for action? We can move it? All right, let's move it to Monday then. And then we'll look at those others just for procedure. Okay, and then this potential policies discussion is probably gonna hit us hard. Post legislative session. We'll-
Yeah, so when we look at those, IKF, I don't have a solid graduation requirement policy for you yet.
Right, that's
That's
that
working
one.
with CCC. When I look at the homeschooling change, there are some nuances in that legislation versus the statute that we need to kind of hammer out legally. Specifically, I think that new legislation applies. So if we have a student start with us and a parent chooses to homeschool them, we have a withdrawal form.
Right.
And they notify us of that. But I think the new legislation implies to families that if they wanna start homeschooling their kid before they ever come to our school, that they have no need to let us know that they're even there in homeschooling. And we believe that it does at least require the notification, not access to materials
Right.
and all that thing, but that. So we need to figure out a way to adjust that policy, and this is a statewide question, adjust that policy to make sure that we reference that.
I thought they were removing that requirement with the most recent legislation. Did I misunderstand that?
So they have removed the requirement for them to submit their materials. That is, but they did not remove the requirement, I think it's like letter C of the statute, that they have to notify us that they're homeschooling.
Okay,
So we will know if they pull their child.
right.
So we have that withdrawal form, we have that form.
Understand.
But if before they ever come to kindergarten or they move into our district, there still is, as far as we can tell, a statutory obligation to at least notify your district that you're homeschooling kids.
That's House Bill 46.
Oh, 4-6, yes.
All right.
So the red line that you see there is just my attempt to address that. I don't have that ready to bring to you through
Okay,
Mr. Kolficki.
all right. So we need to be looking through these and the potential of, especially the concealed carry one, that might change up as well. School admissions, so be looking through those. All
Yeah,
right,
the first three for sure.
yes. Okay, topics for our next cow. We had some ideas there. Academic recognition, consistency of enrollment, and new hires for coaches. I know Michael brought up the academic recognition. Cody, you had the consistency of enrollment and the new hires for coaches. That was Cody's? Okay.
Did I? I don't even remember those two. So.
So what do we want to attack, next Cal meeting, or is there others? Do we have others? Other topics? Julianne?
At some time, and I don't know that we necessarily have to put it on now, but at some time, I would like to have us have a little bit of a conversation again about, do we or do we not take public comment at Cal meetings?
Okay. Let's put that one on for next week, next month.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, so that one. And Cody, what?
No.
And Michael, should we do the academic, should we have a question about academic recognition? Like what do our schools do in-house that we don't know about to recognize, their students, their staff? Just as a board to kind of know what everybody does in-house.
Sure, I mean, you've got staff that, you know, they're FBLA
Yeah.
Advisor of the Year, or FFA Advisor of the Year, or, I mean, look at all the,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mike, you had your hand?
Yeah, Heidi, I think, you know, last day for legislatures, or tomorrow. It'd be nice if we get a Greyhound bus out there at 6 o'clock in the morning to take them back home as fast as possible, but anyways,
You've never ridden Greyhound apparently, because he's not fast anyway.
as long as they're on.
Station, right?
As long as they're on the bus and the door's shut, I'd be happy, but,
Oh, no, not anymore.
there'll be time for
Yeah.
somewhat of the dust to settle by the time our next cow. But we should have a little bit of a discussion as far as those 44 bills that passed and what's that gonna mean to us. You know, cause some of it's gonna be, some funding deal, and we ought to probably, I don't know if that's gonna be appropriate to try to take some, preliminary,
Preemptive
well,
action.
right, well, maybe not a preemptive action, but at least, some, initial, ideas as far as what it's gonna mean to our budget, you know, or
Right.
especially like, you know, if we got the concealed carry, what's that gonna mean to us, and what does that mean to our district and our staff, and not, we're gonna try, there's no way that we can get through all 44 of them, but maybe some of the most important ones that are gonna have the most effect. You know, cause by then we would have an idea of which ones are signed into law, which ones weren't, and when are they going to take an effect, cause I believe like, the property tax relief, I mean, that is effective immediately, you know, and some of these other bills don't take effect until the 1st of July, you know, but, I don't know, I just think that might be worthwhile to talk about.
Should we do, choose two? Cause I think the legislative one's gonna take a little bit of conversation, perhaps, the fallout from that, time-wise. So should we attack the legislative viewpoints of what we might be facing next? And then, do we take public comment at the Cal meeting? And do those two?
Two big ones.
Two big ones, okay. Then we'll get back to Cody. And then just the academic recognition of it, I think knowing what everybody does in-house. So,
Okay.
we'll do those three, okay.
We'll get it together.
All right, next will be, executive session, if somebody would like to entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Billy
Second.
and Cody have moved that we go to we recess. I guess we don't adjourn, we recess for executive session. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. We are in executive session.